Hey everyone, Jamieleigh here, and I have an interesting video, which is going to be this one. We got some comments on my very first video featuring Rusty, the Eclectus parrot. Now, he looks a little rough, but he's freaking adorable. I feel like his roughness is making him even more endearing. And anyways, one of the top comments was actually about the Eclectus intestinal tract, and I wanted to talk about it because it made me go back to my sources, double, triple check my information that I was given, and it just brought up really cool discussion. And I love when you guys do that, when you guys kind of say, hey, I have this question, or I have this information that you may not have, that kind of sheds some light on topics that are not really talked about that much. And it definitely makes me go back to information that I've been told that I've just kind of been regurgitating in a sense as truth, because that's how I knew it without maybe checking it after a while. And when I got this information or this comment, I was like, hey, it's been a minute since I've checked on this information. It would definitely be worth going back to my sources and kind of like bringing up a discussion. So first of all, thank you to the poster that wrote this. I'm going to read the comment, and there was quite a few comments as a thread after this. So I'm just going to kind of bring them up and share with you guys what brought this up. And then I'm going to read to you the responses that I got from some of the sources that I went to, just so we can have a cool conversation in the comments, because I think that there's a lot of information lacking when it comes to avian medicine that makes that sort of topic in general really confusing. I know that I, here on the channel, am promoting doing necropsies to sort of help avian medicine evolve. And a lot of you get really discouraged doing that because one, it costs you money, and two, it doesn't always provide answers. And I know I personally have done necropsies that have provided no answers as well. And it's very frustrating, but at the same sense, I have to convince myself, like, maybe someday it will make sense to somebody to have that accumulative data. So I still encourage it, I still do it, and I just kind of have to remember that even if I don't get any answers or closure from the necropsy myself, someday down the line, hopefully somebody is, and it's going to overall do better by birds, which is the whole point here at BirdTricks, is to give the most up-to-date information and information that we utilize successfully, and information that shows you what not to do, because that's just part of the process. We're super duper human, and we're gonna make mistakes along the way, and I think that those are just as important to show, even if I get completely flamed online, which is pretty much the case when I do show mistakes. But that's just how it goes. I wish that everything could be super smooth with every animal and they don't encounter any stress, just like I wish that was the case for humans, but that just isn't. And because every project bird that I work with is different and is an individual, when I go to apply the methods that I know, they don't always go the way that they might have went with a previous bird, and so I kind of have to adjust and adapt. So those of you that are like, hey, you could have done this better, or you could share this information, or maybe this is new, or maybe this is relevant, please feel free to email me at any point with any of those things, because I'm very open to that. I want to create the content that you guys want. I want to spread accurate information. And even if a video isn't super accurate, I would love to film something that updates that and is more accurate. There's a lot of training methods that we used to use that we no longer utilize because we found better ones. Or maybe training terminology that we used to use that we now know better terminology for to make people understand it better. So anyways, always open to that. Feel free to email me. info@birdtricks.com is where you can get through, or you can DM on social media. Just keep in mind, social media messages kind of get really lost. I try to keep up on them the best I can. That's just a little iffy, so email is definitely a for sure bet. Okay, let's get to the comment. This is by Meltona2. She said, my vet told me that Eclectus parrots don't actually have a longer digestive system, and that it was also a misconception. I'd love to hear more from your vet on Eclectus nutritional needs and differences. And for those of you that don't know, I actually did a whole vet series featuring Eclectus parrots in Australia, where they're most prominent as pets, because here in the US, people do have them as pets, but we don't see them as commonly as we do African greys and Amazons and macaws. Whereas in Australia, when we did master classes, I want to say 80 to 90% of the attendees were Eclectus parrots. And so I teamed up with Mel Vincent and Matt Gosbell in Australia, and we did a bunch of stuff on the Eclectus parrot. So definitely check out those series. Those are still relevant, especially when it comes to the diet information. Okay, so we got some replies to this. Somebody said, yep, my vet told me the same. Eckies are primarily frugivores in the wild from the reading I've done. Low protein, low fat. The BirdTricks seasonal feeding system is a great resource for us, but we've modified it with the addition of a little fruit to get him to eat his chop. For a different view on Eckie diet, search the Elegant Eclectus website and her YouTube channel. I wish she would show more references for her info to make what she says more credible. Yeah, so that's definitely a thing. And I know that in Australia, was it passion fruit that Mel served all the time to her, I shouldn't say all the time, that she served to her Eckies every now and then, and we were working on getting them to cooperate in a lot of videos, and you guys will see that go just totally wrong sometimes, and the passion fruit was super messy, but they seemed to really enjoy it, and it was fun to see how she fed her Eckies. And she does use a BirdTricks seasonal feeding system, but the fruit was a very high value treat and a way for us to have all of her Eclectus in one room and sort of get along. You guys, if you check out those videos, you'll see what I mean by putting that in quotations. So then somebody else wrote and said, the problem is that the fruits we buy at the store have been artificially selected to be the sweetest. The fruit parrots eat in the wild are nowhere near what we are offering them. So best to stick to veggies. Not to mention vets don't always keep up to date with new info, so it's hard to trust one person on something so important like diet. And Amy, I feel you. So Amy left that comment. That's something that came to light very harshly for me when it came to my toucan Rocco, because he was on a 70% fresh fruit, non-citrus diet as currently recommended, and then he had his low iron pellet, and it seemed so obvious that the fruit that we offer for humans is that and has so much higher sugar than the fruit in the wild. I just never put it together for what that meant for their health and causing diabetes and all the things. That was a really harsh lesson, something I did share in my Rocco series, because like it was mortifying to me to be following the latest, greatest information and still be getting it wrong is kind of how I feel about it. I'm very emotional about it. And I know there were comments on that video that was like, hey, just put out the facts and stop being so bawling your eyes out and emotional about it. But like, I have a very hard time doing that. So if you can't handle emotion, you probably can't handle me, and just watch videos with Dave. He's better. He's better at the logical side. But this was a realization I had, and it does affect all of our parrots, because when we think about fruit, we don't think about how much sugar is actually in the fruit that we offer. So I think that Amy, what you say is very valid, and I stand behind that as well. Somebody else said that their avian vet told them the same. They see many Eclectus parrots, work for sanctuaries, see many exotics. He said the same about the types of fruit as well, and gave me a list of which ones to stick to, aka passion fruits, pomegranate, guava, cactus fruit, etc. He says it's the same with toucans and diabetes. We can't give our normal grocery store abnormally high sugar fruits. So love that, April. Super valid. Really great information. Hopefully you guys saw that I did write back to this thread and just said I'll definitely start researching more into this, going back to my sources to make sure they have the most up-to-date info, because I do want you guys to know, like, I want to be made aware of things like this that could potentially be inaccurate. So let me take you back to some of my sources, one of which is Mel. So Mel Vincent, if you guys don't know of her, I did a bunch of different videos in Australia. She was our host in Australia when we did all of our master classes there. She works so closely with 2 avian vets at the time. She did 2 different avian veterinarians. I can't even list her credentials. There's so many. She's so fantastic. And she specializes in all the things that like we usually don't. So we had hired her a long time ago to do blog posts for us, and she would do things on just stuff that they have access to in Australia that they can offer as enrichment. She had amazing enrichment posts. She deals with like vet emergencies or just animal emergencies in general. She sees a lot of older cockatoos and deals with a lot more Eclectus parrots and handicapped and older birds. So she did these amazing blog posts on how to set up proper enclosures for handicapped birds, whatever their handicap might be. And I remember working with a blind cockatiel in Australia, and Dave had the idea of like, hey, we don't really know how to set up this enclosure for a blind cockatiel. We've never done this before. So let's put a camera up, let's go leave, And when we come back, we'll see how this cockatiel currently gets around, and it'll give us an idea of how to design this cage properly. And I was like, you're brilliant. I love you so much. You're my soulmate. So we did that. And we found that the cockatiel actually walks backwards using his tail as a walking stick. I would have never thought that unless I had seen it, and we had not seen it. And so once we knew that, we were able to design all these amazing ramps and areas where he could navigate and like learn his way around. It was magical. It was really, really cool. And that was in conjunction with Mel, because she has so much experience dealing with handicapped birds and making older birds feel more comfortable in their environments and enclosures. So it's just a really cool collaboration. She's amazing. Okay, so this is what Mel had to say of when I asked her about the epigastric system. She was saying that Eclectus parrots are particularly prone to gastrointestinal disease, which means their intestines frequently slow down. It's a common presentation and may actually be why vets assume the system is longer or slower than other birds. Reality is we don't actually know what's normal, but the birds that routinely pass through vet clinics with health problems have GI issues. If I personally think about one of the worst plucking cases that I see, I actually have the owner monitor her bird's poop frequency. When he's having a bad flare-up of his GI issues, he might only poop 3 times a day. She's now picking up on the smell and change in frequency earlier so we can adjust his medications to suit a flare-up. Often there's a hormone link too. He gets seasonally worse. There are medications that help gut motility, and there are things I recommend diet-wise. The good news is he doesn't pluck anymore and now has normal feathering, but it does need to be monitored. I have textbooks that say that the epigastric system is longer. I know which vets have told me it is, and she just said that she can't verify where they got their information. So it was published at some point and is believed. And I actually ended up talking to Patty about this because she's also one of my go-tos. Let me find her message. So what Patty was saying, because I did pass on to her what Mel had said just to have like a very involved conversation. She said, interesting what Mel said. Longer and slower are 2 separate things, though. Longer is anatomical. Oh my gosh, these big scientific words are killing my brain. Sorry, guys. Slower relates to diet. Everyone agrees there is a difference, but whether it is because of an actually longer intestine is up for grabs, I guess. I don't know if we'll ever get to the bottom of this, to be honest. Okay, so some of the things that Patty researched was into the links that people offered, or the sources that people offered in the comments. And her take on it was, this information, it's been around for a long time, and the assumption is that it was based on actual intestinal measurement. Unless someone comes along who has those measurements updated or corrected, it's impossible to say which way this goes. In the meantime, we know what diet works, and we should go forward with that. So she was just kind of stating that the seasonal feeding system, which we created here at BirdTricks, which is really Patty's like full creation. Love her so much. We work together, but like I give her so much more credit because she's brilliant. She's still, and I still feel, and the vets that we talk to still feel like the seasonal feeding system is the best current diet for eckies and other species of parrots today, aside from any nectar-eating birds. Some of the things that she said from researching the sources that you guys had listed, or one of you had listed, she said a lot of it looks like supposition and a lot of it is stated as fact. They're pushing the need for a wild eclectus diet without addressing the fact that we don't have the ability to it, but are using common supermarket substitutions. So far, I don't feel comfortable accepting the information on the site. We know that the diet we recommend is producing healthy birds. If someone wants to change the plan, they're going to have to give a lot more compelling evidence than what I'm seeing on that site, is what she said. So, and it sounded like some of you in the comments were pushing that as well, like just wishing that there was more to back it up, which is always helpful when you're trying to convince people to go your route. You just need a lot more supplemental kind of evidence. Okay, so the last person and source that I have that would be able to get relevant information on the Eckie tract and all of that was one of my friends, who I will keep unknown because she doesn't like to be in the public eye all that much, but she's a great friend, worked as a vet tech forever, runs her own rescue. She's just fantastic, is really close with a lot of amazing vets and other people just connected to the vet community. So I asked her about it, and she said that she doesn't usually follow Eckie stuff, but that she would ask some of her sources in avian vets. So she asked some doctors, and most of them were like, I haven't heard anything. I don't know, and I don't do research on it. That's the thing, is that when avian vets do necropsies, they're not usually measuring the intestinal tract and keeping track. The next vet said she's never measured, so she had no idea, and referred my friend to an Eckie breeder. So this was really interesting. This person had paid their avian vet to do research on their dead Eclectus parrot, and they measured the tract, and from beak to cloaca, it was 56 inches. However, I don't know what I'm comparing that to, that number. Like, it's great to have that number, but I have no idea if that's common or not. There's also different, obvious, like, subspecies of Eckies. I think there needs to be a lot more research than just, like, research of one. But this person said, in my opinion, there's very little research on Eclectus or any other parrot when it comes to that. They had just said, at this point, I'm going to pay another vet to measure more gut tracts because the scientists aren't doing that. So although not well understood, some of us in the private sector are making observations and doing the work to create the data. So it's just one of those things where I don't quite feel like we have enough information to make a claim one way or another. And it doesn't sound like a lot of the scientists feel like they can either, because they don't have a ton of data to go off of. So yeah, that's as far as I got in my research. If you guys have any other research that you want to add in the comments, I think it's a really fair discussion and it's good. I do not think people update their information enough, and myself included. I want to make sure that I'm updating my information, and you guys will see us always making additions to our courses, redoing courses, trying to find better ways to say our information or use our information. So if you ever feel like something isn't up to date, I'm completely open to that input. And I really feel like we're not going to get anywhere with the avian community unless we actually work as a community together instead of act like we're all on separate teams. I think it's kind of BS to be on separate teams. If we're all in it for the birds, that's one team. So it would be nice to see the avian community come together a little bit more and work together on these sorts of topics that could just use more information. Or maybe it's all about just bringing awareness. Maybe I'm not the one to go do the research, but I might be the one to just spread more awareness or deliver the message to a broader audience. I don't know what exactly that role is for each and every person, but I do know that the more people that know and are aware of the issue, the more likely something could be done in the future. So yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you guys for an awesome conversation, having me go back to the drawing board and double and triple check my sources of information, bring up a really interesting point of conversation. I appreciate all of that a lot, and I appreciate you guys caring enough to be part of my community here on YouTube and doing it in such a very cool, respectful way of each other. That was really, really neat to see in the comments. So thank you guys, and I hope you're enjoying this series on Rusty the Eclectus.